Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all, to a brand new edition of The Quinn Spinn. I'm your host, The Quinn. At least that's how I'm known here on the program, and I'm back here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and more for another rousing and riveting installment of the official podcast of Underground Music Collective. You just heard Revel 9's All It Become at the top of the show. That's been our opening theme song here at The Quinn Spinn since the great year of 2014, and it will be until the very end of days. And we have another guest joining the three-time guest club, tied for second place all time. It is Ty Warner coming back to the show, and Ty is actually in the middle of an interesting pivot. Of course, he is releasing a single called This Is Not Goodbye on February 2nd, but before that, he is transitioning out of his full-time Air Force career and taking the leap into pursuing music and creativity full-time. So, catching Ty at a very pivotal time in his musical and creative journey, and we talk about that pivot, and we talk about what is on the horizon, not only with the single release, but thereafter. Let's get to it right now, and you'll see me again at the end. All right, everyone, back here on the Quinn Spinn, as I mentioned and promised you at the top of the show, joined once again by Mr. Ty Warner, coming to us all the way from Cheyenne, Wyoming here today. This is actually the first one we've done remotely, Ty, over Zoom. We did our first two episodes together, of course, in person here in Nashville. But thank you for jumping on the Zoom machine today.
Yeah, well, everybody, we have to thank, in a positive way, you have to thank COVID, because without COVID, in its own way, we wouldn't have this incredible media capability to communicate with people. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Our Zoom adventure here at UMC and the Quinn Spinn, of course, started in 2020 because of COVID. So yeah, without that, we would be still trying to figure out how to do this remotely. But yes, one of the silver linings of that time. And so, first of all, I want to acknowledge that now with this appearance, Ty, you are in a five-way tie, I believe it is, for second most guest appearances all time with 3. You are tied with Lauren Gomez of Soulfit Counseling. You're tied with Laura Goldie, Foundation Mecca, Mike Roy of Roy and the Secret People, and you. I feel like there's one more I'm forgetting. I don't remember off the top of my head who. So if I'm forgetting you, I apologize. But congratulations. You're now in a at least five-way tie for second most guest appearances all time.
Well, there was a Saturday night live skit a couple of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, with Tom Hanks, Paul Simon, and they wore these bathrobes, these bathrobes with the numbers of the times they've hosted, and they bump up against each other and go 1, 2, 3. You're great. No, you're great. And so to all my other 3 appearance people, 1, 2, 3. You're great. And so whoever gets to 4 is going to own the club and get the bathrobe with number 4 on it. And go to the VIP lounge. That's how it's going to work.
Well, Erin McClennan's in the lead with 4, so she's the only 4-time guest. But all of you have the opportunity to tie her, or perhaps even break that record this year. So who's going to do it? Let's find out. But anyway, to reintroduce you to our audience, for those who missed those first couple episodes, which shame on you if you did, I want to ask you again the 3 standard questions, and those, of course, are: who are you? What are your passions? And why on earth would you want to come back on the Quinn Spinn now for the 3rd time?
Yeah. So, Ty Warner, what are my passions? I mean, they do change over time, but you have your baselines of our particular brand and what you can find on the website and all the different components with integrity, loyalty, all those kind of things. But the passion and the spark is in the communication of the music, because when words fail, music speaks. So that's my passion, is to get out there and try to use that across the board communication medium with those notes that resonate globally to make our world a better place and a happier place. And so doing that, along with working with my esteemed colleague and a Cubs fan as well. So that indeed is a challenge in and of itself.
It is, especially because we've done nothing this offseason but sign backup catchers. But that's for another day. That's
that's for the sports side of it. So you're working with you and trying to go up the ladder, and sometimes you look at it and it's just a great opportunity to connect and collaborate, because what it comes down to is building the team, right? And that's what it's about and what you bring to the table. And you and I have talked about this many times. The management component, SWOC, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, and who does what, and who can one put together with the strengths that they have, and so on and so forth. So you have your job, Jar, and I do, and you bring it together, and it merges and it meshes, and off we go.
And it has been a gradual build over the past few years. We became acquainted in 2021, which I'm having a hard time believing it was already 3 years ago,
Yeah,
2021.
yeah.
Feels like it just happened. But,
Mhm.
I remember, we ran into each other here for the first time at Helping Our Music Evolve that spring. And, I think we started talking baseball because I was wearing a Cubs hat, right?
Yeah.
And then I went on a road trip out west, into your neck of the woods, came back, and you were here again, traveling in from Cheyenne. And then we decided to start working together. And I've had a chance to watch and really help develop, Ty Warner Global, at the base level here, at the foundational level.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting to see over the past year, the different opportunities that you've gone and sought out, the different connections you've gone and made, as you look to build out what Ty Warner is in the public consciousness, right? What this brand is, what music for the globe means, right? And so, from your perspective, through 2023, I think a really pivotal year, as far as defining the future direction of where you're going musically. But what were some of the things that 2023 in particular taught you as you move forward into some exciting new territory that, of course, we'll get to here in a bit?
Well, the challenge of being taken for what the value proposition is of your talent, of one's talent, right?
Hmm.
Because when we travel, we had a banner year artist wise, because the band that I have that I put together, and I hate to use the word I, we've talked about this before, it's usually we, right? But there has to be somebody that's doing it. But so we had an incredible year backing three different artists, banner artists, as a backup band, sort of like as the band that you would see behind Delaney Wilson or whatever when you're on stage, and so on and so forth, uh, or whoever it may be, right?
Hmm.
So the predominant artist in that arena was Olivia Frances, and so
Hmm.
she came out here and did a number of magnificent shows. Uh, so from there, the point is you can go from the revenue stream of different different pockets of who takes who for what their worth is. For instance, does a club owner or does a person at a brewery really care whether someone's from Nashville,
Right.
or or is that person just someone that's going to play for $150 for 3 hours, or $200, that kind of thing, as opposed to pitching, no, this is what we're worth, and this is the hard stop, and if it doesn't work out, then that's just the way it's going to be. and
Yeah.
and we're not going to take that step because it's just not fiscally advantageous to us for that. And so that's one of the big things. I mean, I'll say it without reservation. It was an incredible year. It was a fantastic year. I mean, releases, two benchmark releases that came out, um, all the different live shows, Cheyenne Arts Festival, uh, Air Force Academy Music on the Lawn series. Uh, so we had a number of great opportunities traveling up and down the I-25 corridor. Uh, by that, I mean down to Denver, Colorado, down to Colorado Springs, and back up. We're going to conquer it even more this year. But yeah, that's the biggest thing, is understanding that what your value stream is in terms of what you're worth and what you're going to be paid what you're worth. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And so I think a part of that too, because this is definitely something through the academy we've been focusing on with our students, is creating that value proposition and communicating that value proposition, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, what do you bring to the table through these performances, through these experiences that they can get from you that they can't quite get anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a place where, a lot of artists, especially artists who might be kind of new to the game, like, they think talent will be enough. They think, like, oh, well, I just need to run into the right person. I just need to be discovered and it'll be happily ever after.
Yeah.
It takes work to get there. And it also takes work to really figure out what your value proposition is, because you have
Yeah.
to create that value through your experiences, through the art that you're creating and the ways you communicate, right?
Yeah.
So for you, as you navigate the live music ecosystem out there, especially, in Cheyenne, which isn't Nashville, right?
No.
And it's a smaller market. How do you help your band, the Change Agents, and these artists stand out as a cut above the rest when it comes time to come to the table and figure
Yeah.
out that value?
Yeah. So it comes from a number of different things, but number one for me is leadership,
Hmm.
right? Is being a leader and a follower and understanding what I'm going to do in order to make the product better. Again, lead the tip of the spear. Like I said, everybody's equal. We're all born equal. Some are born more equal than others, right? So when I take this assessment of where we're going and what we're doing, and I'll go back to what motivated me was I saw an interview on 60 Minutes one time with John Bon Jovi, and he said, "I don't want to be a shoulda, coulda, woulda." Not everybody is going to want to be in search of a Grammy, in
Hmm.
search of a number one, in search of a hit, in search of a cut, right? And so I combine that with locally, I've got a group of individuals, and I'm just going to say it. They believe in what I bring to the table. They believe in me. They believe that I've got a product, and they're going to follow me, and we're going to go wherever I say we're going to go. And then when you bring in the kind of talent we had this summer with these three artists, um, that's going to be the legitimacy and the validity of what I'm saying. Just believe it's going to work, right? So that's probably without a doubt the biggest thing is you have to believe in what's going on. And I went to the Durango Song Expo in Littleton, Colorado, and I was with these heavy hitters, a lot of sync, a lot of major players, and there was a guy named Jared Cosley. Jared Cosley runs a company and they have these panels similar to other different panels that you can go to, different seminars, Tin Pan South. And he said, and if you look at the Toyota Sunday night football commercials, that's his gig. That's the thing that he produces, right? And uh, and he said you got to be in it for the long game. So when you're talking about your teammates, when you're talking about your teammates that say, "Oh yeah, run into the right people," and so on and so forth, sure, it might happen. It could happen. And just because you run into them doesn't mean it's going to immediately manifest itself. And so for this construct, it's the long game,
Hmm.
and I can't make it any clearer than that.
You've got to plant those seeds and continue to tend those seeds, and they might take years to actually grow into anything. I was just having this conversation over the weekend. Like, there was a content day here at the studio, and I forget how it came up, but I was talking about the history of this show. And now we're in year 11, and
Crazy.
there are artists. It blew my mind around the 10th birthday when Scotty was getting the clips together from previous artists and guests we featured and previous co-hosts. How many artists from like 2014 still remember their specific experiences with finding this show? And that's the
Yeah.
thing, is like you might meet somebody now, and 10 years from now, like you might come around to work with each other again, and it might be, you're all further along and you're able to help each other more meaningfully.
Yeah.
Perfect example of that. We just, through UMC, we covered the Nashville's Big Bash on New Year's Eve. That was through a PR contact I made 5 years ago. We met up at Hattie B's for hot chicken when I was getting ready to move here. And then I get this email 5 years later about, hey, do you want to come cover this enormous event with 200,000 people? And that's the
Yeah.
thing, is like you never know what the seeds you plant are going to grow into. You never
Totally.
know what the connections you make are going to lead to, and how you can in turn help them later on as well. And so, it is this journey of just continuing to plant those seeds, to foster those relationships, to ask people questions about how you can be helpful to them,
Yeah.
and, to build community, because, if somebody from that community goes on to bigger opportunities, they're going to want to bring their friends and the people that they've been there since day one. They're going to want to bring them with them. At least in my opinion, they should want to, right? And
Agree. Yeah.
so it's amazing to see, that take place over time. And certainly, for you, as you've had the chance to, you've been working with Olivia for a few years now. You've had a chance, through the connections you've made and the travels that you've gone on to, you know, build even a greater ecosystem for yourself, for Ty Warner Global, for the change agents and everybody involved, everybody
Yeah,
therein. And
yeah,
now you're to the point where there's an interesting transition happening for you here
right,
coming up in a
right.
couple weeks. So tell us about the leap you're about to take, Ty.
Well, it's all about timing, right? I mean, I'm big into I'm very big into motivation and inspiration, and a lot of Instagram feeds. A lot of my follows are on pages or feeds that talk about inspiration and what's gonna move someone, right? So one of them is that if you wait for the right time to make it happen, that time is never going to happen. It's never going to. It's going to be. It's going to. You just have to take that leap of. I have to take the leap of faith in order to make it happen. And so the stars are in alignment. I'm going to transition. I'm going to transition out of my full-time Air Force career, and I'm going to plunge headfirst into the the following the path of success in my musical career. And so that's going to happen. And I've just reached the point where I feel like one has to give way to the other, and I'm fully positioned and ready to go. Yeah,
And
yeah. I
so, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no. One of my dearest friends. This is another thing we talked about. Because we just I'm career military, right? We just had a change of command ceremony for a senior leader last Friday at F.E. Warren Air Force Base, right? And we talked about there's this term out there called mentor, and being a mentor really uh, sometimes I think that term is overused, right? I think that for me, I like to gravitate towards people that are coaches for me, that help me with certain things. Um, because I think there is one thought process that you can only be one mentor to one person. If you're a mentor to a lot of people, then you're not really in that lane of what a mentor should be. That's just one philosophy. So, anyways, one of my coaches said to me, "You don't retire, you refire." And when I transitioned out of my active duty military career, I remember he told me that, and I've always remembered that because I like to use the word transition because the term retire has such a it's a disdain. It has a connotation of finality to it, or I'm okay. Now I'm going to go. I'm going to go to a grocery store. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I mean,
Right.
it's just yeah, let's go. Whatever. Got the hat on and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But anyways, so that's not me. It never would be. So I'm about to transition to my next career. Yeah,
Yeah, to the next chapter. You're about to graduate from one to the other. And I think,
yeah.
I love that perspective that life is this series of transitions,
Mhm.
graduations, there is this sense of impermanence, and as there should be, because, we should always be trying to grow. We should always be looking to learn new things and challenge ourselves in new ways, regardless of what stage in life we are, what stage of our career that we're in. What are you looking forward to the most about this next stage to where you're focusing full time on your creative pursuits?
Well, again, part of my remarks that I'm scripting for the my transitional ceremony, let's just say it, the retirement ceremony, right? You invite people and it's a celebration, but it's all about the time, right? It's all about there are big motivational people that talk about there's 24 hours in the day and then how many seconds are in that day. So for me, it is the opportunity to devote 9 hours a day to this industry that I'm so immersed in now. Because the schedule I work right now, I only have a certain amount of time that I can devote to the musical aspect of my career because I also have a family and those kind of commitments. So this will be an opportunity to delve into uh, the creativity part of it in a much more productive manner because there'll be more bandwidth for me to operate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think starting out too, and I think any artist who starts out, like, you've got to test the waters, and it helps to have that like steady income while you're doing that. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And even like, I remember when I moved here to Nashville, I had a day job. I didn't like that day job, but it paid well and it helped
Yeah.
me kind of get my feet wet. But I ran into the same thing, right? Where, I'm there, I'm commuting in, so I'm leaving the house by like 7:30, not even getting done till 5, then, you take care of all the life stuff. And by the time I actually sat down to work on anything involving UMC or the show or whatever, at the time, like it was 8 o'clock, and I was lucky to get like 3 good hours out of myself before I'm falling asleep on the desk, right?
Correct.
And you
Correct.
and you get to a certain point where it's like, all right, like something's got to give here, one or the other, because I think you get to a certain point where you want to grow, but you can't grow the way that you want to with the time constraints that you have, right? So you've got to make a choice.
Yeah.
Either this is going to be a hobby or this is going to be my full-time focus going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with either choice, and it really just comes down to, what you want out of it, how bad you want what you want out of it, and the time that you're willing to put in. But
Yeah.
if I've come to find, in 10 plus years that like if you want to make a career out of it and you want to build a legacy on this, eventually you've got to take that leap. And
Yeah.
not to romanticize it, because there's nothing easy about it, and I'm not gonna like I don't want to sugarcoat it for anybody out there. Like this leap, for me, this is what it did. It will teach you everything you need to know about yourself,
Yeah.
professionally and personally. But like that's part of life's challenge and that's part of life's journey, right? And so, it's a worthwhile leap to take. But and to your point too, like you're never ready. You just make the decision, right?
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
what's ready?
Yeah.
Like, ready is this idea that we have that doesn't really exist, because there are always going to be things that arise when you take that leap that you didn't know about. You can't help what you don't know, that you weren't prepared for, that you learn by doing. That even just researching and reading information online is only going to teach you so much. But once you get out and experience it, then it hits you flush. And then it's easier to internalize that lesson, at least for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the
Yeah.
same way, but
Yeah. 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 Well, let's break for a second and let the world know what an incredible job you've done with your endeavors with from so for everybody that's been to home, right? Gerard was this guy that would just stay huddled over this desk. He had the Cubs thing on, and I only knew him from the back, from his back, whatever. Who was on the back of your jersey? Who was on the back of your jersey?
Rizzo, I think it was Rizzo
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rizzo, and he had the hat, and you're passing in and out of home and and so then we sort of connected there. So from there, you've got two different venues going on. Not venues, you've got two different enterprises that you're nurturing and you're moving along the path, which I think is just a remarkable testament to believing in yourself. Drive, diligence, and determination. Those are the three D's, right? And so you possess those, and then do I want to associate myself with someone that's got those? Yeah, that's something that is incredibly admirable because there's a lot of tough days where you wonder why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I think you missed one. It doesn't start with a D, but stubbornness.
well,
Stubbornness. Because
what I say,
sometimes well,
yeah,
you said drive, diligence, and determination, which are all true, but the stubbornness, like you need to just like, because that's a good point, is like, there are days where you don't, it's hard to see the forest for the trees, and it's hard to
yeah,
really, like, there are definitely days when you take that leap and something happens and you think it's all over, right? Like you think it's the end. Like, oh well, this is where I go back to corporate America, everybody.
yeah,
But like, there's always a way through. And I think what I've had to learn over the past 3 plus years since I took the leap, and multiple instances of that, to be honest, is that like once you let the emotion of those moments level off, you think more clearly. And once you think more clearly, you find a solution and you figure out what got you to that point that you need to change so
yeah,
that you can
yeah,
move forward and the compass is pointed in a truer direction, right? Like I said, like the leap is going to teach you everything you need to know about yourself, and it's going to bring you face to face with a lot of uncomfortable truths,
yeah,
especially if you're in my position 3 years ago where it's just you out here in the wilderness, 800 miles away from your family. You don't have a significant other. You don't have kids. You don't have pets. You don't have any. It's you navigating this new, strange world that you've given yourself, right? Without the comfort now of a day job. Like you're going to get hit in the face with some things when you take this leap. And it's not to scare anyone, it's to give people a realistic idea of what to expect so you know how to navigate those things better.
yeah, yeah,
Because Because if you just think you're going to come out here and you're going to just start busking down on Broadway in Nashville and Blake Shelton's going to whisk you away to a record deal, it ain't going to happen. Like
Yeah.
this is like, in a way, the leap is where the work starts at a whole new level. And like, you have to be committed to that work and you have to, it's a chance to get obsessed with it more than you've ever had a chance to before, which
Yeah.
is exciting, but you've got to find the excitement in it and not let it overwhelm you and learn to take it day by day
Yeah.
and learn not to get too high or too low from any triumph or quote unquote failure. Like you've got to find a way to stay level and not let the emotion of any one moment drive the bus.
Yeah. No doubt about it. I equate it. I use the term, you use stubborn. I use it. I use the term. We did this in the last chat we had, a fortitude. It's about fortitude. Yeah. I'm all about those, that particular train of thought.
Yeah. Yeah. A certain toughness, you like a resilience that you have to build up.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because and you only build that resilience too by like going through the discomfort. Like, it's just like training any muscle, right? Like the
Yep.
muscle, like if you've never been to a gym before and you lay down trying to bench three
Yeah.
plates, you're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
you need to work up to it, just like, and you need to build that resilience muscle as well. By experiencing discomfort, by stepping out of that comfort zone, by letting yourself fall on your face once in a
Yeah.
while, but then actually taking the lesson from that and learning it. No failure is permanent unless you decide that it is. And I
No,
think
no doubt.
that's the one thing like this leap has taught me, and it's taught me a lot of things. But if I could pick one
Yeah.
right now in this moment, it's that those moments that feel like the end are really just moments where it's the end of that chapter of doing it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Now starts a new chapter of
Yeah.
doing it another way. And
Yeah.
for me, like 2023, I took a lot of big shots at the beginning of 2023 and of 2022 going into 2023, and I was just like, well, this is the final battle. Like I kind of phrased it as that in my mind, and I'm like, at the beginning of 2023, it was interesting because I had the mindset of like, this either works or it doesn't this year. Like
Yeah.
I even told my sister, give me one more year, and if it doesn't work, I'm moving home. Like full disclosure. But what I realized is it was the final battle, but it wasn't the final battle I thought I was getting
Yeah.
into. It was the final battle of doing things that way. And it was also the final battle with certain parts of my ego that I finally had to put to bed in order to build the platform that I know I can build. Like
Yeah.
we're always
Yeah.
going through these beginnings and endings, but there's no permanent ending unless we decide there is.
Yeah. The twists and turns. No, I totally. And then you say, yeah, you would resign yourself to uh going back, but what would you do? You know?
Exactly. And that was part of, honestly, the second half of 2023 in particular. It's like, this is great back
Yeah.
home, and I know it's there for me anytime, but I've still got unfinished business in Nashville. I've still
Yeah.
got things I got to do. I've still got a thing I want to build. And yeah, what would I do?
Yeah. What
What
would
would
you
I,
do?
like I have an opportunity to build this platform. I have an opportunity to, I'm smarter than I've ever been because of all of the things that have happened along this
Yeah.
journey. And I
Yeah.
feel like the offerings are, better and more rooted in value and substance than they've ever been because of that. And it's in a lot of ways because of the shots you take, both in
Yep.
terms of the chances you take and also the shots you take, flush to the face.
100%.
you know,
100%.
like
Yep.
it's
Yep.
like there's no question in my mind that it's made me a better entrepreneur and that because of it, UMC is better than it's ever been in terms of
Yeah.
what it stands to offer. You
Oh
know,
yeah. It's totally it stands in its own. It's diversified. It's united but diversified at the same time. And then you've got your other platforms that feed off that. It's just a marvelous product. Yeah.
like this podcast, the Quinn Spin, which we're
Yeah.
joined by Ty Warner, of course. So
Yeah.
Ty, to celebrate the leap, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, but right after you transition out of the Air Force on February 2nd, there's a new single coming out. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it, who helped put it
Yeah.
together, and what we can expect?
Well, sure. So the song is called This Is Not Goodbye. And it is a universal theme. And the theme is that when someone passes away, it's the song of the person that's passed away letting the person that or whoever they left behind, could be more than one person, but that particular individual will not be left behind. And why I know it's an incredibly universal theme and why I know it worked in terms of the creation of the product was because when I said I went to the Durango Song Festival, excuse me, the Durango Song Expo last year, last quarter of last year. Um, and so, for those of you that are new to the industry, when we talk about pitching a song, whether you're doing it song feedback at Nashville Songwriters Association International, whether wherever your song pitch feedback formats are, you usually have a lyric sheet that you give to the judges, not judges, judges is the wrong term, but the people that are assessing your work, and they're usually very storied people. And then you also had and then you give them the track and you play a little bit of the track. You know, it's about you have about a 3 minute window to do whatever you want to do. So there were two lead dog heavy hitters, and both of them said in two different pitches that I had, they said, so you're writing this song from the perspective that this is the person that's passed on, correct? And I said, yeah, we did. That's how we did it. And they said, I've never heard that before. So A, it connected, and B, it's a theme that everyone understands. So how did it come about? Well, there's an artist, again, let's go back to do you remember a couple of years ago, there was that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing that everyone was connected to Kevin Bacon? Well, our 6 degrees of connection is Olivia Frances for me because we met at NSAI. And then from there, it blended into just kind of writing together at NSAI in the writer's room. And then she introduced me to H.O.M.E. And from H.O.M.E. introduced me to Gerard, introduced me to that whole thing, introduced me to a bunch of different people, producers, Scott Griffin, all that different lane of connection, right? And so from there, we wrote this song together. And the song was spurred by the loss of an immediate family member of ours. He said, would you write a song about this person? So that's kind of how the cut started. Fast forward to New York City. Okay. So I'm in New York with my beautiful spouse, and it's our wedding anniversary, and she wanted to go see the Book of Mormon. So we go to the Book of Mormon, and the inquisitive individual that I am, I went down to the orchestra pit, looked over the orchestra pit, looked down, and there's a fella playing the bass guitar. And I was watching him because I'm a big technique guy. I like to see how if you use your fourth finger and the way you approach your instrument from a lesson perspective, right? And I said to him, hey, I like your technique, man. It's really you look like you know what you're doing. So he kind of bantered back and forth, and we thought that was going to be the end of it. Walk out the stage door, there's the guy. His name is Brian Crook. So then I got a picture with Brian. We connected. I got his phone number. So he is the guy in New York City, in Westchester County, New York, that produced this cut for us. And this production that he went to, totally dynamically different lane. And Brian has played over 7,000 shows on Broadway. When you listen to his resume, he's so incredibly matter of fact. And I still need to get a little bit of permission to reveal to the public, the general public, a couple of people that played on this recording. So we're very excited to bring this to the forefront because I feel it's a universal. I don't feel it is a universal thing. We're all going to leave. How are you going to be remembered? So on and so forth. So that cut comes out on February 2nd.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd want to touch on, I want to make sure we highlight there is when you were pitching the song, yeah, and they said we've never heard anything like that before.
Yeah.
What you did was you differentiated yourself through your songwriting, right?
Yeah.
Because so often the songwriter will write the song about the person who passed. You're taking it from the other perspective,
Yeah.
which again, like when the world zigzag, and that's such an important thing for artists to do, is to find a way to take that relatable thing and make it your own. It's I'll steal an Our Lady Peace lyric. The story's been told a million times, but it's different when it's your life. The story's been told so many times, but it's the way that you tell it, the way that it happens and it's presented that's unique and
Yeah.
speaks to a moment. And so by doing it, by making that choice to write from that perspective, you differentiated yourself in a way that most other artists aren't doing. And that's very, very important because with how many people are releasing music every day in this country, in the world, with how much is out there, like any artist needs to find a way to stand apart from the pack, for lack of a better term. And so I think that's a very important thing to know. And I wanted to make sure we caught that because
Yeah.
you did it. You did it and you caught their attention and very excited for this to come on out on February the 2nd,
Right.
right
Yeah.
after you transition out of the Air
It's quite,
Force.
and it's a little bit of a turn. Yeah. I mean, it's just the way it falls, right? It's just how it falls, right? As we said earlier, if you wait for the right time, that right time may never come. I mean, we see it all the time. There's just so much going on in the world that I just have to make sure that now's the time. And so that's going to be a great opportunity. Brian just brings an entirely different perspective. Scott Griffin, an amazing guy. Bobby Phillips here in Cheyenne, who he did the suicide resiliency cut. He's got his own lane of what he brings to the table. But Brian, I mean, he's just so beautifully orchestral from his Broadway perspective and the people that he approaches and the guy is just such. Brian drinks the best coffee on the planet,
Yeah.
and he's like a coffee connoisseur. Whereas I'm a guitar connoisseur or whatever. This guy, I mean, when he was at the hotel, I mean, he brought his own thing with him, whatever that apparatus is that whatever that stuff. I mean, they had the whole thing, and
Like a
everybody was,
percolator, like he brought his own percolator.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, he brought yeah, yeah. He brought the beans.
mhm.
Brought the beans. He brought the beans. He brought everything. Like we would bring our guitars and our laptops and whatever. That's what he brought. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and he's a multi-instrumentalist as well. But I mean, he's basically in his own way a genius in his own way. He's just a beautiful guy. Lives in New York. Whole different vibe. Going back to that part of the country. We were near West Point, and so yeah, the United States Military Academy, the Army Military Academy. But anyways, that's what we're doing. Yeah, it was a great time. So we're thinking about going back there in March, and yeah, just getting different perspective of different people that you work with. Yeah, it's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, very excited for you. And of course, there's still a whole year, just about of 2024 remaining after the release of the single. So, what are your other 2024 goals? Now, you transition out of the Air Force, you release This Is Not Goodbye. What else is on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, I believe that it just gives us an opportunity. No holes barred, right? No holes barred, just full tilt, to be able to um, devote, get more on a schedule of perhaps an EP release, perhaps a more scheduled release time, build a consortium of different artists and moving into one of the goals is to move into this company that again through H.O.M.E, through Ms. Frances, Wall of Entertainment with Daniel Collins, right? And that's the company that I was picked up to be part of their uh, uh, vice president of finances, interim vice president of finances. So that's a big deal to be able to help that company because they're a veteran run talent organization out of Nashville. And so from there, um, try to launch that and see if we can get some bona fide artists to to take under our wing and bring them to the tip of the spear as well. The guy that I try to emulate in the industry, storied, is a guy named Clive Davis. Anybody that's listening to this that wants to know how you want to be what you want to be in terms of running a company, Clive Davis is your guy. He's the benchmark. He's just discovered everybody, works with everybody, continues to work with everybody. Yeah, and so he's one of the benchmarks. I know we say don't compare yourself to anyone, however, there are certain benchmark people that I want to say that is something that I'd like to take from and bring into the hopper. Working with you better, making sure that your company is off the charts, and we have an office on Music Row, our own office. I mean that's those are some of the things. So, anyways, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, so Wall of Fame Entertainment, check them out as well. Yeah, doing good work here. I've had a chance to meet Daniel too. Good guy,
Yep.
very insightful. And again, it's not a retirement, it's a transition. It's
Yeah.
new ventures on the horizon. So both musically and of course now on the music business end, So let's start to wrap it up. We got a couple more questions. We are coming up on time, but before we do that,
Yeah.
now that it's been another year plus since we had you on the show, maybe this answer has changed. I'm not sure if I asked the last time. I'd have to go back and listen. But if there's one lesson that the journey to this point has taught you that you would impart upon an artist just starting out, or to yourself when you just started out on the journey, what would that be?
Yeah, the lesson I've learned is that even though I have a tremendous, what I like to refer to as a tremendous inner circle of people that I work with,
Hmm.
all right, whether it's you, whether it's Olivia, whether it's the band, whether it's Banks, whether it's Logan, the inner circle that I surround myself with, be fully prepared to believe singularly in one's self, and that is from oneself is where you're going to have to generate and go forward with. It really ultimately comes down to the person that you're seeing in the mirror and no one else.
That's right.
That's my biggest takeaway is that you have people you surround yourself with and align yourself with, but when the bullet hits the bone, you have to be fully prepared. I don't know. It was a child's limerick. I use it all the time. Butcher, baker, and the candlestick maker. You have to be totally 100% self-sufficient, and
Mhm.
and then from there you move forward. You move out, and people seem to gravitate towards us, and vice versa, and take it from there. But that's really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think too through that self-sufficiency, we learn our own strengths and weaknesses. We learn what we're good at, what we're not good at, what we want to do, what we don't want to do, and we're able to identify and build our team based on those things, right? So we can
Yeah.
focus on on our strengths and our passions, right? And
Mhm.
it takes time to develop that. But, it's I think something we've both definitely had a chance to learn is like, hey, you know, who do I want to build around me? What kind of team, what kind of vision community do I want to build around me? So this can have as big an impact as I know it can. And so
Yeah.
you've done a tremendous job, of course, doing that, building that community tie.
Yeah.
And I'm sure here in 2024, it's only going to get better. And before I let you go and then I come back to do the outro stuff, just want to give you a chance to tell everybody where they can learn more about you online.
Well, sure. We've got a number of different platforms. We've got all the streaming platforms. Ty Warner Global is the site. Ty Warner Global is the Instagram handle. Ty Warner the Change Agents is our Facebook page for the band. And just punch it up and you'll see what's happening. And from there, just if you see me on Instagram, please feel free to DM me. I'm glad to give you my number. Um, I think I'm done buying guitars for the next quarter of a year. Could be wrong, but just in the meantime, if you need something, I'm just joking because there's uh, I tend to like to purchase instruments at times, whether it's a keyboard or a guitar or a mandolin or whatever. But yeah, just don't be a stranger. Whether it's Gerard, reach out to Gerard. This guy will take it. This individual will take you to the top too. I mean, it's all about going to the top or most of the poppermost. That's what we're trying to do here. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Ty, thanks again for coming on. This is Not Goodbye coming out February 2nd, and the outro to this episode coming right now. All right, there you have it. Always a good time having Ty Warner on the show, and he is now in a multi-way tie with the other three-time guests of the show, Lauren Gomez of Soulfit Counseling, Foundation Mecca, Lord Goldie, and Mike Roy. 5 people tied for second place. Of course, Aaron McLennan still in first place in guest appearances with 4 all time. Want to thank Ty. Go to tywarnerglobal.com to learn more about what he's got going on as he makes this important transition. And follow the Quinn Spinn on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Also on the socials at Quinn Spinn Official on Instagram and Threads, and at the Quinn Spinn, 2 N's in Quinn, 2 N's in Spin, on TikTok and Facebook. Also, Underground Music Collective, our central hub for all things independent music, creativity, community, entrepreneurship, and more. UMCNashville.com is the central hub. We're also on all of the socials, really all of the socials at this point, even X, where we're not really active anymore. Follow the UMC 20 playlist on Spotify, updated with 20 fresh tracks in the latest episode of this very program every single Tuesday. And I'm going to take us out with Revel 9's All I Become, the end instead of the beginning. Grab some muffins on your way out.